So that's when you are ready.
All right, I am ready. Can everybody see my slides?
Yes.
Perfect. Just want to make sure before I get rolling. Since like Kathy, I am a fast talker. It might be harder to stop me once I get going than to check in advance. So hello, everybody. I am back. Again, I am Beth Cope. I've kind of switched hats for this presentation. I am going to speak to you a bit about the work we've been doing at Houghton Library at Harvard, where I am currently serving as the interim head of the manuscript section. So at Houghton, we've used SNAC-a-thons to build interest and skills in SNAC, to improve our documentation, and to set up our archival staff to be able to include SNAC in their regular processing work, as is our policy. And for those of you who have been attending SNAC annual meetings for some time, you might remember that back in our first virtual annual meeting back in 2020, I actually presented about our policies with Susan Basinski, our incoming director of SNAC, and my Houghton colleague, Melanie Wisner. And this is something that developed out of actually implementing those policies. So let's talk a little bit about how our SNAC-a-thons have come to be. So originally, we planned to have a Houghton SNAC-a-thon sometime in the spring of 2022. It was something I actually stepped into a new role first in December of last year, and it was sort of a project for me to develop this concept to get us a little bit more active in SNAC. But then Harvard Library actually went fully remote again after our winter break, and it kind of seemed like an opportunity to once again focus some time on SNAC. So I quickly pulled together a SNAC-a-thon for about the third week of January. And our original thought would be that this would actually focus on women's records from a reparative project we had done at Houghton the last couple of years to update records where women were represented by Mrs. and their husband's name. And I will say that some of those were done as part of the SNAC-a-thon, but it also allowed our archivists to select entities whose SNAC records they hadn't got to, who were part of a backlog of names we were working through based on processing projects. So this all came together because I'm also our local reviewer at Harvard. So anyone who wasn't already independent in SNAC would just be sending records to me, which simplified organization, made sure that we weren't adding to Jerry and Dina's already extremely busy plates in January of this year. And we were really hoping that this would get everyone up to speed with training and familiarity with SNAC. Something that we kind of struggled with was after really successful SNAC school trainings, was to actually translate that into regular work and editing. Folks would kind of not edit for a few weeks or a month and lose some of the skills and the familiarity. And so we were thinking that this might sort of be a concentrated effort to get people comfortable in working in SNAC. And I had been working with our accessioning archivist, my colleague, Melanie Wisner, to really create clear workflow documentation, which is what we presented back in 2020. And this gave us the chance to really update it to current policies and also test it for our archivists' use. Because when we developed it, it was really the two of us working with it. And we wanted to expand that to make sure that it actually worked for everyone who's part of the manuscript section at Houghton and creates SNAC records regularly. So how we organized our SNAC-a-thon was we actually did a 3-day SNAC-a-thon, and then we set a goal for editors to complete editing of 10 records. And I say editing because Houghton was very much involved in the initial ingest in SNAC, and it's pretty rare to actually come across an entity, a creator, or a subject of our archival collections who's not already in SNAC. So we do tend to be editing, not creating, though occasionally that does happen. So the way we structured it on our first day, we had a synchronous meeting to start out. And during that, we discussed all of our Houghton workflows documentation, which we edited to include screenshots and updates from our 2020 workflow. We went through a tips sheet, which I put together in the weeks before the SNAC-a-thon, where I just sort of listed all the most common things we all miss while working in SNAC, particularly after we haven't trained in a long time. You know, the sort of language codes, things like that, making sure our sources are structured properly, that kind of thing. So we walked through that, and then I actually did a screen share and did a live demonstration so everyone could see a little bit more about how working in SNAC on a daily basis can go, you know, what kinds of sites I also had open for sources, where I was copying information from finding aids, from bibliographic records, from Wikipedia, those kinds of things, and sort of how and where to gather that information specifically for our records. And then we had an initial period for questions. Then after that, the editors had the rest of the day to work on this as much as they could asynchronously. And we use Microsoft Teams at Houghton. That's our internal messaging system. It's much like Slack, but owned by Microsoft. And since we use Outlook, it's all integrated. So that's what we use. And I created a shared chat for SNAC in particular, and editors could jump on with questions. We could discuss the work we were doing. And Teams also does have a video call function. So if someone needed sort of one-on-one help, if they needed to do a screen share and show me what was going on, we could do that. And folks did definitely take advantage of that, particularly the first day. Then our second day, we also had another synchronous meeting, and that was kind of a check-in. We chatted about how things were going. Folks could ask me questions that I could answer. And then I did another live demonstration, this time with merging included. And then we just kind of made sure everyone's work was going well. Everyone was set for another day, and they had the rest of that day to continue to do work around other obligations that they had. And then our third day was just fully asynchronous. Editors were able to do independent work. They could reach out via Teams for chat and things like that. But they also could do this work around their other tasks. Since this was at a point where people were certainly very busy, we didn't want to have it be that they had to work on SNAC all 3 days, but that we provided enough time to reach the goal of 10 records edited around their other obligations that they might already have. And so we did set this as a priority for the week. And then my priority was just doing the reviews and helping the editors, basically. So how did it go? So we ended up with about 35 records that came out of our SNAC-a-thon in those 3 days. Those were edited, reviewed, and published by the end of the third day. And as successful as that was, and it was really exciting to see so many records getting done so quickly, we maybe actually had a larger impact on our workflow documentation. We got a ton of feedback from everyone about the workflows. And so I was able to make edits and additions and updates so that things were clearer for everyone who's using the documentation. In a way, our first SNAC-a-thon really performed as a usability test, which is something near and dear to my heart, for our documentation instead of for a website. And it's a model that we're actually looking to use at Houghton going forward to assess the functionality and usability of documentation about other types of records. We're looking at around MARC records, for example. It was also really successful in that it allowed multiple of our archivists to become independent full editors in SNAC. We had 6 people working actively in SNAC during the SNAC-a-thon. We started out the week with 3 of us working independently as full editors and 3 who were still submitting records for review. And by the end of the week, everyone was actually fully independent, which was really exciting. And I will say that this really did help routinize our work. It really kickstarted making SNAC records part of most of our manuscript section members' regular work. We do have a SNAC policy at Houghton that SNAC records for creators are part of processing, and most of our manuscript section members who catalog or process are allocated time to do 2 SNAC records a week. We don't always have consistency with this because it's just been a really busy and hectic year back in the office, but it did help boost that and get people really comfortable with working in SNAC. So what is next? So we are actually coming right up on our next SNAC-a-thon. Based on our success with this, we're tackling another SNAC-a-thon with our colleagues from Harvard University Archives next week. This was the brainchild of Susan Paszynski, who thought that this would be a really important effort to try to clean up the Harvard University corporate body names that already exist in SNAC. And so she reached out to myself and our HUA colleagues, Jennifer Pellos and Robin McElhaney, about organizing a SNAC-a-thon centered around Harvard corporate body names. And it's been a really exciting effort. Harvard University Archives has given many of their archivists and other staff members the chance to take SNAC school between our first organizational meeting back in May and now. We had several people in our first back in-person SNAC school training, which was very fun. So we will be tackling specifically Harvard corporate body names and cleaning those up, adding notes to disambiguate, and updating resources and relationships. And so we've been working really closely to prioritize a set of names. The Harvard University Archives folks were good enough to put together a very long list of Harvard names that are priority to get fixed up in SNAC. They then assigned some of those to the most appropriate staff members who are knowledgeable about them at Harvard University Archives. And then we're allowing some selection from a different pool of entities for the Houghton editors. We've set a goal of 5 entities to edit over the period of 3 days. And we're going to have our very similar organizational structure, once again, with kind of a kickoff meeting and then a check-in on the second day, and then otherwise independent work. Once again, using Microsoft Teams as kind of a chat method to continue conversations around our SNAC work throughout that time. And I have updated a workflows document that's specific to this project and editing corporate body names, and we'll also be using our specific standard that Jerry has put together for us. So it should be really exciting to see how this works as a collaborative effort and what it sort of helps develop between our 2 repositories and how it helps develop SNAC involvement at Harvard more generally. So we have been really thrilled at how well SNAC-a-thons have supported our implementation of SNAC as part of our processing workflow and really improved our documentation, making it better and easier to use. If you have questions or comments, feel free to ask me or to reach out to me at elizabeth_cope@harvard.edu. And I will say our SNAC workflows that we've used at Houghton are publicly available. And I can put those in the chat if people are interested. I anticipate that the new corporate body names workflows will be available after next week's collaborative SNAC-a-thon, as I also imagine that there's something we'll update as we go along throughout that 3-day period. And so they'll probably be improved by the end of the week. And I can share those with the SNAC Cooperative in a newsletter or something if folks are interested in seeing those later. So thank you very much.